Hi, this is Pam Dunwald with Patient Advocate Match, and we are a directory of healthcare services that maybe a lot of things that you may not think of. A lot of our services can be provided virtually, so anybody across the country. Otherwise, we do have local professionals that may be in your area. So I just encourage everybody to check out Patient Advocate Match and look at all our resources and see if there might be something that can help you. Today, we are talking with one of our professional resources on our directory, Tina Baxter. She's a nurse practitioner with Baxter Professional Services. And, October is Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is something that is one of Tina's fortes, so to speak. So she's also a legal nurse consultant and wears a lot of hats. But today we're going to talk about mental health, especially in the geriatric or our senior population, because as Tina's going to explain, there's a lot of stigma attached to that. So we're going to dive into that, and hopefully we can help bring some things to the surface and encourage those that need to reach out to get help to do so. So Tina, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Tina, why don't you just dive in? What we were talking a little bit before we're sharing this presentation, and what have you seen, especially with our senior population since the pandemic?
Well, what I've seen a lot is people that normally wouldn't come in. Maybe they were feeling that they can weather the storm, as they say, are now more open to seeking help. I don't know if you've seen those commercials that are on there about the guy that's lifting weights and he's like, no, my family says we have to do this on our own or whatever. And I think about that. A lot of our older adults come from that generation of, as they say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Or as the old mothers would say, it doesn't take all that, right? And so they don't necessarily think that depression or mental health issues affects them, because it's like, well, I'm just stressed. I'm just sad. I'm just angry, and not being able to recognize that this may be a clinical problem and there are ways to get treatment. There's still that stigma that if you go see a therapist or you get on medications that you must be crazy. And then add on to that fear that older adults get, that maybe I'm getting more forgetful. Am I losing my mind? And I don't want anybody to know. So you see those things start to come out. And in fact, I just spoke with someone today in my practice. And one of her concerns is her memory. She recognizes she has the depression and anxiety, but now she's worried about, am I losing my memory or am I just getting old? And she said that, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, you're only 63. I'm like, that's not a sign of memory loss, is not a sign of aging. That's not part of the aging process. So we need to really investigate this and look at it further. But I'm like, if you're getting old, then so am I.
So Tina, tell me what, as a family member, an adult child of an aging parent, or just another loved one, what are there some signs or some things that they could look for to that might be some red flags?
In older adults, sometimes it doesn't manifest itself as what we typically think of someone being depressed, right? It sometimes comes out in somatic complaints. So maybe they're complaining about, oh, I have a lot of headaches. And they, normally didn't have headaches. Or I've got a lot of aches and pains. Arthur is getting to be more than usual. You may see they begin to withdraw from family activities. Once they'd want to go out to dinner with the family, and they're like, no, I'd much rather just stay at home. So you may see some subtle changes like that. If you see some really drastic changes, such as they're more irritable, angry, lashing out, then you may look at possible depression as well. And then in some cases, they may have more crying spells. I had one lady that was her tell when she was feeling down, because she also had some dementia, is that she would have these crying jags. And we talk about what was causing the tearfulness and the crying and help her to identify that.
So if they do notice those types of symptoms, what should they do? What's the first steps that they should take?
The first step is to talk to their family doctor, their primary care provider, and ask them for an evaluation. And this is something that's standard when you come into your primary care provider's office. They're going to ask you some questions about depression. That's one of the things that we have put in place, and that's sort of, I don't want to say mandated by the government, but it's a guideline that the government encourages us to use, particularly in those that are 65 and older. And so they'll ask you some questions like, do you feel depressed, hopeless, or sad in the last 2 weeks? And they'll ask questions of, are you feeling anxious in the last 2 weeks? And then really digging into what does that mean. It may mean that, something is going on with depression, or it could be something else. Look for those things like losing weight, not eating anymore, maybe becoming more forgetful, because sometimes it may look like they're having a memory loss or dementia related memory loss, but it might be actually related to anxiety and depression. And so teasing that out and looking for that.
So we all know many times, in caring for aging parents or another loved one, a lot of times people say, oh no, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the doctor. I'm fine. I got this. Is there anything that we could do that could encourage them or dissipate their fears, or how would we encourage them to get to see their primary care provider?
One of the things is to make it a routine. Part of this is just what we do is maintenance. We'll take our car and get our oil changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think of this as maintenance for your body, maintenance for your mental health. And say, you need to have that physical. They understand that once a year physical, that look-see to see how you're doing. And you want to make sure that if there are taking medications, other medications, heart medications, things for their blood pressure, it's important to get those things checked on a regular basis to make sure the medications are still appropriate for them. So there's many times that they may have started a medication when they were younger that they may no longer need. And so kind of encouraging them to engage with their healthcare provider before it becomes a problem, and really focusing on the prevention aspect of it.
So besides medications, are there other things that the provider, may order? What kinds of things can we do to help our seniors or our parents that may be having some mental health issues?
One of the things is scheduling an appointment with a therapist. A very skilled therapist can help them with cognitive behavioral therapy, reframing how they are thinking about what's happening. So for example, as you get older, we go through life, many different transitions. So maybe it's the transition and coping with the change of, suddenly I can't drive anymore because I don't feel safe driving. Those big moments in our lives can sometimes be very disruptive if we don't have coping skills in place. So going to a therapist or a counselor can help them learn good coping skills to manage and navigate those changes that happen in their lives. The other thing is keeping older adults and everyone physically active. And we can get them involved in activities. We do know, and the research has shown, that isolation and social isolation is one of the big indicators for the decline when you get older, and it can lead to death. So making sure that we get people out and visiting people, engaged in activity, and becoming a part of the family and their family activities. Finding an outlet, some leisure activities is wonderful. One of the things that we did in one of our care homes is we had a walking club. And so the ladies and gentlemen would have this contest of who can make the most laps around the building. And whoever had the most laps got their little prize for the day or whatever when they did the contest. So find ways that you can get them engaged. One of the great things that they do in my city is that during the summer, and then they had these walking programs in the local parks. And then now that it's getting colder, they've moved into some of the senior centers, and they're having walking clubs and activities for them there that they can go. And these are for community dwelling and any senior that wants to attend, and it's really nice.
You know, when you brought that up, I had a chuckle because last night on our news, one of our local nursing homes, our care homes, it's called Northland, they in La Crosse, this is big Oktoberfest week. So it's Germans, beer, all that stuff. Well, they actually set up in the parking lot of their care facility, they set up cones, and they had the residents in wheelchairs, and they each had a cup of beer, and they were doing races around the cone to see if they could keep from spilling their beer, and they had prizes and stuff. So I just thought that was a really creative, idea, to number one, get them involved in some kind of fun activity and let them celebrate Oktoberfest as well. Next question I have, Tina, is, a lot of times, as we age and the older you get, the more you lose your friends, you lose your family. So how does this cumulative loss, how can that affect our aging population?
When you think about what we all have collectively gone through, this pandemic, right? And you can see the losses compound themselves, where some of the residents in one of our facilities they lost a lot of their friends, and they're now also worried about their family. And so how do you navigate that compounding effects where you're losing a lot of your friends? I had one client that her entire family's gone. She's the last living sibling. And I said, how can we honor them, but also help keep you engaged? And one of the things is, I like to see when older adults are paired with the younger generation. That keeps them both engaged. And I think our young people can learn a lot from spending time with our elders, but it also gives them a chance to become a part of things again. There was a gentleman I think I saw on YouTube, and he wanted to go, he was having a bad day, and he's recording this. So he decided to invite someone to go to Disneyland with him. So he found this random older gentleman in the park on a walker, said, I'm having a bad day. Do you want to go to Disneyland with me? And the man was so surprised. So they show this whole video of them being buddies, and he's taking them to all these rides, and the older guy gets to be a kid, but this guy gets to feel good because he's had someone to spend time with, and they became best friends for a day. And so, look, there's a part of where you're looking back and mourning the losses. You're no longer a daughter because now your parents are gone, right? You're no longer maybe a mother because now your children are out of the home and you're a grandmother. So how do we bring those things in and help fill that gap of knowing that you've left a good legacy when you're by yourself? Again, that social isolation is so key, and we have to do things to get our seniors more involved in the world and participating. I love to see it when they're on social media and doing their TikToks. If you haven't seen it, go to TikTok and look at some of these older individuals just enjoying themselves on TikTok. It is so cute to see them do these amazing things. And so I want to say you don't have to retire from life when you retire from your job. I look at it as retiring into a new life, because there's seasons that we're in. There's seasons where we're building families and having kids and building a career, but there's also that season where you get to pass on what you've learned and to pass it to the next generation.
So Tina, that brings up a really good point where you're talking about leaving a legacy and sharing. I mean, do you have any ideas or any suggestions on some of the ways that they can do that?
What it was interesting is that we were talking about this in my church like last year, about how none of the young people know how to sew. Couldn't put a button on to save their lives.
It's on my bucket list.
They don't know how to plant a garden.
Mhm.
And so giving back and taking the time to share those skills that you've had that you kind of take for granted. I
Mhm.
mean, I would love to have a crocheting buddy, right? Because I can do a little bit, but how much greater would it be to sit there with someone who can show you how to
Mhm.
make those wonderful, beautiful patterns? And I think that's what's kind of missing. Used to be everyone lived together. Grandma was still in the home,
Mhm.
and she would teach the young people what to do, and everybody learned from one another, and it was passed down to generation. We're seeing that because everyone's so scattered across the world, we're not getting that as much. And so how can we continue that legacy, of passing down that generational knowledge that we have? One of my favorite memories is working with my grandmother in the kitchen
Mhm.
and cooking,
Mhm.
and learning from my mother cooking. And so that's one of the things I teach my nieces and nephews. I'm like, come on in here, let's go make this, because I want you to be able to make this one day.
You know, and that brings up a really good point. I think about my life as a mom. I think about I've got, grown daughters that are moms. And, my mom was always busy. I was one of five. But what the memories I have the most is going upstairs. My grandma and grandpa lived upstairs from us, going upstairs, and my grandpa liked the chicken pot pies and those kind of things. Well, my grandma would save the tins. And so
Hmm.
when she would make pies, she would let me make a little pie in one of those little mini tins. And so that is an awesome memory. But you look back and you, as a mom, did I do that with my kids? No, but I am doing that with my grandkids. So I think it's so important, like you said, the seasons, and to make sure that you continue to pass on and do, do those things for for those other generations. So, Tina, wrapping up, is there anything that you'd like to talk about on the subject that we haven't touched on? Anything that we've missed, or anything that you'd like to share?
I want to say, you don't have to do it alone. Even if you are alone and you don't have family readily close by, you don't have to do it alone. Talk to someone, talk to your faith leader, talk to your primary care provider, but let them know what needs you have. There are resources out there, and certainly your website is one of them. Talk to people. Um, don't be afraid to engage. That's one of the biggest things I saw coming out of the pandemic, is so many people were still afraid to interact with other people. And it sat at home watching the news and all the bad news that's on the news. And I like, turn the TV off, go outside and take a walk. And you'll see that the world isn't as bad and scary as as the media portrays it. Now, yes, there are bad things that happen, and I acknowledge that. But there's also wonderful things that happen. There are great things that happen. And I think we need to remember and put it in perspective that even though maybe at this time it's a difficult season for us because of the pandemic, because of the economy, but you can find other ways to be meaningful, other ways to find joy. And you can't give up that search. That is what it means to be alive, is to find that pursuit of happiness. That's what we're out here for. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well said, Tina. So, Tina, in wrapping us, tell us a little bit about your business and who you serve.
Well, I am a nurse practitioner, and my specialty happens to be older adults. But I also serve many other clients because I help them with wellness. And one of the classes that I do teach is stress management, which I can do online as well. So you don't have to be here in Indiana. You can schedule a session for me. And I tried my very best to keep them as affordable as possible, because this is a passion project for me. That's one part of my business. I want people to help manage their stress and live better lives. The other thing is, I also am a legal nurse consultant. I help attorneys with their cases. And so someone has an accident or personal injury, been a victim of a crime, that type of thing, and there's medical issues there, then they can ask me to take a look at that and help them organize those medical records and understand them and what's happening. And then I also help train CNAs and home health aides as well. So I try to do my very best to help people to be better for having met me. And so if I can help you in your business as a nurse and you have your own business and you need a coach, I can help you as a business coach. Great. If I can help an attorney, because ultimately that attorney is there for that client or patient or facility. If I can help them make their lives better and easier, that's great. Or if I can help you manage your stress so you can sleep better at night, feel better, have more energy, that's what I like to do.
Thank you, Tina. And just to remind everybody, just go to patientadvocatematch.com and you'll see our resource directory. You'll be able to find Tina right there. I will put the website and that in the video description. So with that being said, thanks for stopping by and spending a few minutes with us. Thanks, Tina.